Well, hello, everybody. Happy Monday. I hope you're having a terrific day so far. If you have just tuned in, good timing. You have tuned into Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. I'm Kathy Holmes. I'm delighted to be your host. And in my Zoom booth today, I have Geraldine Maclear, and she's with Happy Pedals. We're going to talk all about what that means, what that is. Get yourself settled in and enjoy the program. Hi, Geraldine. How are you? Happy day for you. Nice to meet you this way.
Hi, Kathy. Lovely to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me. Very, very pleased to be on your program.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure I really understand what Happy Petals is. Could you maybe give us a little bit of a background on how you came to be, what it is, and then we'll start having some conversations about it?
Sure. So my business is named for my love of cycling, but it has nothing to do with cycling.
Ah,
And my logo has a bicycle in it. But yeah, the business name is not related to the work I do. What I do is I help businesses get found online. So I do something called search engine optimization or SEO. And I also do website copywriting. And this is to help people get found in traditional Google searches and also the expanding world of AI search, where people are using tools like ChatGPT to ask long questions, which often end up with them buying a product or a service. And if you have a website and if you have a small business, you want to be one of the businesses that gets recommended by these tools. And obviously, Google search is the traditional search where most of us are used to seeing the 10 blue links on the search screen and then clicking through to a business's website. And the question is, what do you need to do to have a better chance of being one of the websites that's listed on page one, preferably, because not many people look at page two. And then the copywriting is getting your messaging just right on the website so that it's describing what you do, who you do it for, why you do it better than anyone else, and why people should choose you over another business. So really, it is persuasive writing, but it's
mhm.
the key is to fully explain your services or products and help the customer to choose what's right for them and not leave anything out that might make people want to work with you or buy the products that you're selling.
So, were you always interested in computer optimization or website optimization, or were you doing something else prior that led you to this? How did you get started?
Okay, it's a bit of a circuitous route. So I was a software engineer for about 30 years, so a long time, and completely unrelated software. I was writing the kind of software you might find inside a cell phone. So that does the audio processing, gets audio from the mic and turns it into packetized voice to send across the network and turns that also into the sound you hear through the loudspeaker. So that's what I was doing for a very long time. And I left that career in 2021 and took a break. And I was able to do some volunteering with my favorite charity, which is the Elephant Crisis Fund.
Oh, what's that?
So this is a fund that was specifically set up at the height of the ivory poaching crisis
Yes.
by two organizations. One is Save the Elephants, which has been around a long time.
Yeah.
They're a very well established support and research charity that has been supporting elephants for a long time. And then it's also administered by something called the Wildlife Conservation Network. So they are the people who collect the donations on behalf of Save the Elephants. And the Elephant Crisis Fund itself is a fund where every single dollar that goes into the fund goes directly to organizations on the ground that are preventing poaching or helping with habitat preservation or doing the very important work of trying to infiltrate the wildlife trafficking criminal networks
Yeah.
and finding out how they're operating and where they're operating and whether judicial courts can get help to make sure people who are doing this awful work are actually convicted. So there's a lot that they do, and they got me to help with writing social media posts.
Hmm.
And I found out that the thing I was doing was called copywriting. So I started studying that. And that's where I heard this term SEO, or search engine optimization. And I found it interesting and started learning more about that. And then studied that, took several courses in that. So initially, I was helping them with their website. And I found I was looking at other people's websites just to learn more,
Mhm.
because you can look at anyone's website, you can look at the source code in any browser. And I found a lot of small businesses were just missing a lot of the basics.
Mhm.
So that's why I set up my business and I chose the name Happy Pedals. And what I do is I help them to improve their website so that it has the kind of basic setup to give them a better chance of being found by Google. Yeah,
So I I'm sure that this isn't related, but being the fact that we were talking about the ivory and the elephants
yeah.
and all of that stuff, your accent is so beautiful. And if I'm not mistaken, it's South African. Is that right?
That's right. Yes, I have been most of my life here, but yes, I grew up in South Africa and I have very fond memories of visiting
Mm.
game parks as a child with my parents.
Yeah.
And, seeing wildlife, just it's absolutely stunning to be in a situation like that. And I feel very strongly about preserving the kind of wild spaces that still do exist. And there are a lot of challenges that come with that because, there's population pressure, infrastructure development, and understandably, a lot of settlements and populations that live alongside elephants, there can be conflict because elephants can eat huge amounts of crops in a single night.
Yeah.
And if your livelihood is wrapped up in a farm and your farm gets trashed, you're going to be very angry. So a lot of the work that the Elephant Crisis Fund does is finding ways for people to exist peacefully alongside elephants. And I'm very happy to go into details about that if you want to talk about it.
I would love to talk a little bit about that, but not to take away from Happy Pedals, because I think what's really important is that, I've been working in nonprofits for a number of years, and one of the biggest troubles that we have is really getting the messages out, right? And so search engine optimization, and if you have a cause, it doesn't necessarily matter what the cause is if the message isn't going out there to hit the target audience that you
Yeah.
need to meet. And so I think that, in talking about the elephants, it's very important because this is a passion piece. But at the same time, I know for myself, Act Three is a passion for our community. We spend a lot of time talking to people like you who are doing incredibly good things in our community. We're only as good as how many people get to see our program or hear our
Yeah.
program. So it is very interrelated. And so yes, if you don't mind, I would like to go back because we're on that topic for a few minutes.
Yes.
Um, you know, we don't we in on Vancouver Island, we don't have elephants, but we do have species that are being endangered every day, whether it's in our sea life or whether it's in our forests. Our large cats are fewer and far between. They're coming into the community now looking for food. I can imagine that while, they're not elephants, there is some connection between all four-legged, if that makes any sense at all. I'm not sure where I'm going with that statement, but there is a connection with wildlife and our existence. So tell us a little bit about, I mean, obviously this is a passion for you, the Wildlife Conservation Network, Save the Elephants, and the Elephant Crisis Fund. Um, Ivory was literally sawed off of the elephants, and the elephants were left to die. Is that correct? Is that how?
Usually the elephants would have been killed first.
Okay.
So at the height of the crisis, there was like industrial scale killing going on. So very large weapons being used and well-funded organizations going in and finding the elephants and shooting whole herds and then hacking off the tusks. Sorry, but it can also happen on a smaller scale.
Mhm.
So if the population living near elephants is economically disadvantaged, and they hear that if they can get an elephant tusk, it's worth this many dollars.
Hmm.
That can be a huge temptation. So then you might get people just using like arrows or poisoned arrows, that kind of thing. So there's a whole range of different approaches to poaching, if you like, and different reasons and different approaches to getting it to end. So something like the big industrial scale, that's more law enforcement and having armed patrols going around. And then the smaller, more local people, it would be making sure that they have a chance to have a decent livelihood without having to resort to that kind of activity. Plus, also education, getting little kids in touring around the game areas and seeing wildlife in its natural state. And also, if tourism gets developed, then communities become aware that this wildlife is actually a way for their whole community to make money because people are coming in and they're bringing money with them. Yeah.
So when you started to put together a campaign to get the word out, what were some of the things that you started to notice as far as an online presence?
Well, initially I was helping with social media. So I was writing about the stories that came back from the field, specific projects that were being implemented and specific groups and different countries and different elephant populations, all the different, like forest elephants have different approach to conservation to savanna elephants, and a country where law enforcement is pretty stable would have a different approach to a country where there's an ongoing civil war and
Hmm.
there's just a different level of security needed. So I learned a lot about these projects by writing the social media, and I also reviewed the website of the Elephant Crisis Fund and gave feedback on specific. It's called technical SEO, like work that you can do in like the hidden fields of the HTML source code of a website, and making sure that headings are accurately reflecting what's on the page. So giving feedback on making updates to the website to make it more likely to be found.
There are thousands and thousands and thousands of websites that are on the internet. How do we ensure that the messages are accurate and on the front page so that people would go to that right off the top?
Okay, so that's a very big question.
I'm sure it is.
It's sort of $1 million question because I mean some of the big brands are competing to be on page one, and they've got huge marketing budgets. So and everyone's looking for ways. Actually, people are always looking for ways to trick Google, which
Mhm.
is a great approach because Google is then always looking for ways to plug all the loopholes, and it's constantly updating its search algorithm. But
Yes.
there are some basic fundamentals you can stick to, which over time will have the result that you will sort of earn your place on page one. So there isn't really a quick fix.
Mhm.
And if there is, it's probably a dodgy tactic that you're trying, and it might work for a while and then it might not. And you might actually get penalized by Google if you're doing something really underhand. But there's just basic fundamentals you can put in place. And as I said, over time, and it can take 3 months for these changes to have their full effect, your hope is that you will see yourself climbing further up in the rankings. And that actually makes working in SEO a bit tricky because you cannot say, if you just do this, this, and this, you will be on page one
Yeah.
because there isn't that kind of magic formula.
Yeah, and I wondered about that. I remember early on when I moved to Vancouver Island 15 years ago, I was really trying to market my business. And I recall, one of my dear friends saying to me, if you think you're going to put a shingle on the door, it ain't just going to happen like that. It's all about who you know in community and how well you're advertising and how much you're putting into it. And so I started putting tags on absolutely everything so that my company would come up very, very quickly. You're right. In the beginning, it seemed to, because of my geographical location, it came up on top. But if I went to Vancouver and I typed in, for example, I was teaching at the time, so, educators in Nanaimo, it wouldn't rise to the top. But if I was near my home base, I can
Okay.
type it in and it immediately happen. Is there something to be said for the location of where your business is versus how it gets brought up on those channels? Is there a way that if people are consistently, looking for your company name, that it rises? Is that how you're actually rising in Google's eyes or earning your place, as you so eloquently put it a moment ago?
Um, the short answer is no. I'm just making notes because I've got a few things to answer there. So I will point out one thing. If you search for yourself online,
Mm,
and you use Google a lot, there is some personalization in the results you're going to get. So if Google knows you're often looking at your own business and
mm,
then you search for that sort of field, it's likely to put your own business near the top because it knows you often do a search for that kind of thing. So
mm,
there is a mode in most browsers. In Chrome, I think it's called incognito mode, where you can do a search and a lot of that personalization is removed. So if you want to get a better sense of whether your business is ranking,
mm.
it's always a good idea to first go into incognito mode before you do the search. And then talking about location, um, I can also talk a bit about Google Business Profile. So
Mhm,
that's different from your website. If you do a search like Nanaimo Pizza, for example,
mhm,
you're probably aware that near the top you're going to see something called a map pack. So you actually see a map and you see little pins in the map, and each of those pins corresponds to a business and it corresponds to that business's Google business profile. So
mhm,
this is a free profile you can claim from Google. You fill in a lot of your business details like your opening hours and your address. You put in some photographs. So for location-based searches, there's the map pack near the top. And to get in that, you need to have a Google business profile that you've optimized well. And then below that, there'll be the blue links. And that's called organic search results. And then working on your website to make sure that you've got the word Nanaimo on your contact page, maybe on your home page. You talk about serving customers in Nanaimo and Ladysmith and whatever. You've got quite a bit of location information there.
mhm.
That gives you a better chance of appearing in those organic search results when someone does a location type of search. So either you're searching for a business that's obviously location based, like pizza,
Mhm.
or you're actually putting Nanaimo as part of your search. And then the other thing you asked is if you do a lot of searches for your own business, is it going to improve your rankings? If it does, it's going to be a very tiny amount. So
Mhm.
there's, the huge amounts of data that are being processed by Google to get a sense of how many people are looking for something, and then how many people click on a certain website. And when they go through to the website, how long do they stay there?
Yes.
Because you've probably searched for something, clicked on a link and thought, this isn't what I want, and you just go straight back.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
if you bounce really fast, that's an indication to Google that that search result that they gave you was actually not a good result because you looked at it and you said, no, that's not what I'm interested in. So that kind of thing is always feeding into the algorithm, how people interact with the search results. Because Google is in the business of trying to keep you happy.
Mhm. Yeah,
If
for
you
sure.
if you start thinking Google's giving me absolutely rubbish results, you might start using a different search engine. So Google is always trying to keep its users happy, and the way it does that is by giving them really good search results. Like these are websites that Google thinks are perfect for your search.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
there's a whole lot of factors that go into that. That's the algorithm
mhm.
that is deciding which website should I display in order to make Kathy happy. Yeah.
Now, with the advent of ChatGPT, a lot of
Mhm.
people are using it as a search engine.
Yes.
How is that affecting the way we are doing business right now and that effectiveness for finding information on Google when ChatGPT is going to all sources?
Okay, so that's an excellent question and a very timely question. In about the last 18 months, the search landscape, as it's called,
Hmm.
according to people who've been in this industry for a very long time, it has changed more in the last 18 months than they've seen in decades. So the emergence of AI tools like ChatGPT and them being used for searching has had it's hugely disruptive, but it also gives a lot of opportunity. And I think especially for small businesses, it's providing opportunity. So the way people use a tool like ChatGPT to search is very different. So just an example, suppose you're looking for an emergency plumber in Nanaimo. If you went to Google, you'd probably type in emergency plumber Nanaimo
Hmm.
and you get some results. But I find the more I use ChatGPT, and other people are doing this as well, they're having more like a conversation
Hmm.
because you can ask follow-up questions, you can ask long questions, and you can ask a long detailed question. Like, I'm looking for an emergency plumber in Nanaimo who has experience with hot water tanks and is available on the weekends and has good reviews. Okay, that's a whole lot of searching. And then so ChatGPT takes all that and it goes out and does all kinds of searches on your behalf. And then it comes back with some recommendations. And it's looking at all kinds of sources. It's looking at websites. So it's going to different plumbers and looking at their websites. It's looking at their Google reviews, not just how many stars they have, but it's actually reading reviews. So it might see a review that says, "Oh, they came out on the weekend." Okay, great. That, that's a little positive
Hmm.
indicator for that business. It's looking at review sites like Yelp. It's looking on Reddit. It's looking at Better Business Bureau's site. So it's taking all of these sources and it's sort of going through them and coming up with some recommendations. And in its answer, it's saying this one has some really good reviews about weekends, and this one is gas fitting certified. So, it's giving a different kind of result, and then you can ask follow-up questions. But anytime you do a search, you can see where it got all its sources. So you can find out where it went to get all this information.
And so using it as a tool, then continuing with your example, if they, have got really great feedback from Reddit or from any of the star type, um, I don't know what the word is, but you're able to ask better questions, but it can also work to your detriment, I would suspect. I guess my it's very confusing for me. So to be completely transparent, I know nothing about this stuff. I've only just started to learn about ChatGPT and what a incredible, incredible thing it is for most people in trying to
Mm.
work through their businesses. And so what I'm learning is that what I'm curious about is from your perspective as an optimizer, you're trying to find ways to get the company name seen more in these areas. So are you having to write, much like you did with social media, are you having to write to Reddit, write to these areas, the language that they want so that it appears to be in ChatGPT as an answer, or how does that work?
So Reddit is a difficult one. You can spend time on Reddit. You need to build up this thing called karma,
Hmm.
and you sort of hope that your customers are talking about you on Reddit. But you can also go in there and you can answer questions. Like if someone had a plumbing question, how the heck do I deal with this?
Hmm.
And you went in as your business name and said something like at so and so plumbing, we find that it really helps if you do this. And if you start giving advice,
Hmm. Hmm.
you can start being sort of known on Reddit.
Right.
For things like Yelp, any business can go and claim a free profile on Yelp, and you
Hmm.
can describe your business on Yelp. You can also ask your customers to leave you reviews on Yelp
Yeah.
so that you start getting a presence on Yelp. And then for things like that detailed query I mentioned that someone's looking for someone who can work with gas, hot water tanks. If you have on your website, not just we do plumbing, And if you've got a hot water tank, we can help. But if you have a paragraph, like we've worked with this kind of gas hot water tank and this kind of gas hot water tank, and we find some customers have this issue, and we find this is the best way of dealing with it. So you're putting a lot more detail on your website so that if someone is asking ChatGPT about that kind of thing, they can go and look at your website and say, oh, this business knows about this kind of thing. So I'm going to recommend this business versus the others. So I think that's one of the main opportunities for small businesses is really be specific and detailed about what you offer on your website. You know, that's the thing you can control most easily is your own website. And do try to make sure that you're mentioned. I mentioned Yelp. I think for home service businesses, there's something called Home Stars. Like you can experiment with ChatGPT for your industry. So
Mm-hmm.
you can ask it, you know, who would you recommend in Nanaimo for this type of industry? And then see where is it going to get its information and find out, can you get your business listed or mentioned in those sources if possible? Now, some of them you may have to pay, and some of them just you might not think you're a good fit, but you might find some opportunities like, oh, I don't have a Better Business Bureau listing. Let me go and make sure that I set that up. So just wherever you can, get your business mentioned and listed the same way in all the different places.
But that's also where you come in, right? As an optimizer, how do you take that business and actually sort of is that part of your service where you look and you try and find out where people are showing up?
My,
How does it work?
the main focus of my business is making sure that their website
Hmm.
is easy for Google to understand, for ChatGPT to understand,
Okay.
and for ChatGPT to understand really fast. Because if you've worked with ChatGPT, you know that you get back a response sometimes in less than a second.
Yes.
So it has to go out, load a website, read through the website very quickly. If you have a slow loading website, you're out of luck. It's not going to spend the
Yeah.
time just, you know, twiddling its thumbs while it waits for your website to load. So often things that are slowing down a website are the type of things that I'm pointing out to my clients and saying, you need to fix this, you need to fix that because it's slowing down your site. Or there's certain fields in the source code of the website that these tools will go and look at first. If you know, the source code of a web page is just a long list of words and code, and they have to, the crawlers, as they're called, have to look through all of this and from that understand what this web page is about. And you know, that's quite a task. So the first thing they look at is a special field called a title tag. And the title tag is for crawlers. So they read this. Now, maybe you have a title tag that's not optimized. Maybe your homepage says home dash Branson Enterprises. Okay, what does that mean? You know,
Hmm.
crawler looks at that, they have no clue what type of industry is this, what type of clients do they have. So maybe that should rather say tax accountants for small businesses in Nanaimo. Okay, great. Now ChatGPT knows, oh, that's what this web page is about.
Hmm.
So just making sure that those fields that are available are properly set up. That's the kind of work I do, so that when the crawlers go and look at a website, they can quickly understand it, get a sense of what you do. Yeah, and it loads fast and just all those kinds of things.
I have so many more questions.
Okay, go go for it.
Well, and this is one of the reasons why I think it's important to have guests like you on the program is because, there are so many things that we are doing in community and that we really need the help of people like you to be able to make this work easier. I will never be a search engine optimization person. That is not something that I have the expertise in, but I sure am grateful that you are. And so I look forward to having more conversation with with you in just a moment. If you have just tuned in, you've tuned in to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. I am so delighted to have my guest here today, and we're talking about SEO, computerized optimization, ChatGPT, all that great stuff. Geraldine Maclear is with me. She is with Happy Pedals. And so, what I'd like you to do is, while I'm giving you a little bit of a ramble of what's going on, I want you to go grab a piece of paper and a pen so that you can write down her information if you haven't already done so. And in a few minutes, she'll share with you how you can reach her. In the meantime, I've got a couple things to talk about. Number one, I am so delighted to let you know, of course, that Act 3, our latest episode, has dropped. Of course, it is shown 4 times a day, Vancouver Island wide on Rogers Cable 4. So do make sure you check us out. You can also check us out on our YouTube channel, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, particularly for shows like right here that you're listening to on CHLY 101.7 FM, because you can then go to go to my YouTube channel and get the information so that you can, if for whatever reason you're driving down the road, you don't have a pen handy or whatever. So I do invite you to do that. I've got another little thing to let you know. One of my dear friends is bringing back, I'm hoping to be one of the greatest fundraisers that we have seen in Nanaimo in a really long time, with all of the money going to the Hospital Foundation in specific to youth. I am very excited about it. It is not happening until next year, but we're just dropping these little notations to let you know that it's coming. I want you to keep your eyes open for Glitter 2026. That will be at the Convention Center. There's much more stuff going on between now and then, and I'll share all of that with you as well. If you have just tuned in, once again, you've tuned into Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. My guest is Geraldine Maclear with Happy Pedals. Back to the program. I'm excited and I'm freaked out at the same time because when I go to the computer now, I take for granted how exquisite it is to go to ChatGPT and say, I'm looking for XYZ. However, it also makes me nervous in the sense of not really knowing how my website is optimized enough to be able to be seen as an authority. And what I'm hearing is I'm hearing that our websites almost need to be more educational now than ever before. Is that
Um, no, I wouldn't say educational. I would say they need to be clear and specific and
okay?
detailed. So, yeah,
So going back to keeping it simple then, right? Websites, if they're because I remember taking some training many years ago and they talked about the top third of your
yeah,
website having that if you've got really important things to say,
yeah,
they need to happen at the top. Is that
yes.
still accurate?
Yes. So usually at the top you have your H1 heading. So headings on a website they're in a hierarchy, and you can you can specify that a heading is an H1 or an H2 or an H3. And again, for something like ChatGPT or Google that's crawling your site,
Mhm.
it will assume that whatever's in your H1 heading is more important than your H2 heading. And you usually want just one H1 heading per page. So then it reads the H1 heading to get a good sense, again, of what the page is about. So it's important for crawlers. It's also important for people who are looking at your site, so that as soon as they land there, you really only have a few seconds
Mhm.
for them to get a very quick sense of whether they're in the right place or not. Everyone's in a hurry. If they land on a page and all they see is an auto-load video of a drone view of the Nanaimo harbor, and they're looking for an accountant, that, why would they care about a lovely video? They want to see what kind of accounting this business does, maybe how long they've been in business, what services they offer. They want to see that very fast so they decide whether to scroll down the page or not.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
called above the fold using
Mhm.
old
Mhm.
accounting terminology, but whatever's at the top certainly needs to convey very fast what is special about your business and what you do and who you do it for.
So if I can go back to the H1, H2,
Hmm.
so when I look at my website, the tabs across the top, home, for
Oh,
example,
the menu.
about, or as
Okay.
the menu go, that's
Yeah.
not H1.
No.
Okay. What exactly is the difference between that tab and H1 in making sure that it's written so that it's read right away by whatever search engine, whether it's Google or ChatGPT or
Well, they're very different fields on the web page.
okay.
So a menu that's going to be present on every page of the website,
Mhm.
and that's understood to be part of your navigation, and that's how the crawler can move around your site. So
Mhm.
there's links from the menu to the other pages on your site. There are other ways for the crawlers to move around your site, but that is one of them.
Okay.
And usually just below the menu, or maybe just above the menu, depending how your site is laid out, you'll have this, it's called a hero statement or an H1,
Mm.
which is usually much bigger font. And that's the first thing you want people to see to get a sense of what your business does. But most websites have home, about, services, blog, whatever. So that's pretty standard. And you don't want to modify that to try and tell people what your business is about. That's just so they can easily get around your site.
I think that's why I was confused because I'm hearing
Uh,
the title and I'm thinking that it's the top of the webpage, but really it's the top of the content is what you're saying. So the
yes.
first thing on homepage, for example, then if you're, if you're the heating specialist or a
Yeah.
gas fitter or whatever, it needs to be about or accountant. That needs to be front and center so that when the crawlers come, which they come consistently throughout the day because I know people have changed their page and that crawler comes back and it will upload whatever that new change is. So that top part has to be reflective of what the business is. Am I right there?
Yes. And I think a lot of people assume that they should put their business name there.
Hmm.
But usually your business name is part of your logo, which is often at the top left of the
Hmm.
website. And most people care about what they want. They don't care so much about what the name of your business is. They care about what you do and whether it's going to help them. It's
Yes.
all about, I'm on this website because I want something for me. So you want to make sure your messaging explains why the website is the right fit for the person who's just landed there.
That must be really, really difficult for companies to ensure that they're messaging properly to get their ideal customer because there's
It
so
can be, yes.
yeah.
Like writing just a few words is often way more challenging than writing a lot of words. And
Mhm.
encapsulating everything in one heading is, as you say, it can be very tricky. Now, a lot of businesses, they're just well-known names. Like they're well established in the community, and people are not searching for tax accountant, they're searching for that business name. So
Mhm.
not all businesses need to pay a lot of attention to SEO. They
Mhm.
might be getting all of their clients through word of mouth, or there's some other way that they're doing their marketing, and people know about them, and SEO is not high on their priority list. So it does depend on the type of business that you're in.
And what kind of businesses do you see most often in your business coming to you for help?
I'm seeing a really wide range.
Okay.
So I've worked with someone who makes chocolates, like artisan chocolate, someone who does coffee delivery, someone who has an education, creates educational software, someone who's a psychic. So there's a whole range of businesses that I work with. Really, whoever approaches me, I think because I have a software engineering background, I'm very comfortable working with high tech businesses.
Mhm.
But most small businesses, I learn about their industry. One of my first steps with a new client is a client intake questionnaire where I learn about what their most important services are, who their ideal clients are, what their customers say about them, how they want to be known, so that I can get a better understanding of their business and their industry before I start looking at their website.
I think that it can be quite intimidating to look at that big picture, right? How your presence is.
Yeah.
As from a business owner myself, I look at it and go, oh my God, I'm definitely not an expert at this. But I'm also in a position where I'm a smaller business. And so it's not necessarily that affordable to kind of
Yeah.
really invest in that. So I'm without asking what your prices are, that's not where I'm going with this, but what can a person expect when they're building a business for a proportion of their budget to go to this kind of work? Should people be looking at it as being, 10% of their business, 20% of their business to really do well by the internet, for lack of better words, as a whole component in itself?
I would say this would be part of your marketing budget.
Sure.
And so it's part of marketing. And from what I've heard, marketing is what, 7 to 10%.
Mhm.
I'm not too sure on those numbers.
Mhm.
So the type of service I provide, I don't do like a done, I don't do a long-term SEO contract.
Mhm.
So a lot of agencies will set up a contract with the client, like we will work with you, we will help make some changes now, and then every month we're going to be doing some more work on your SEO, and it's going to cost this much per month.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think that can be very suitable for larger businesses.
Mhm.
So the way I work is it's a one-off. Here we're going to do a full review of your site, and I'm going to give you a list of changes that I'm recommending you make. And either the business owner makes them if they're comfortable editing their own website, or they give the task list to their developer, or if they need help, I will find a developer for them and I'll manage a project to get the changes implemented. So it's more of a one-off. But part of my report, it's there's an educational part of my report, which is like in the future, when you're adding images, you want to follow these steps in
Mhm.
order for the images to be SEO optimized. So I think going through the process of getting a review and reading the report and listening to me critique the site in a video recording I give means that in the future you can sort of have an SEO first mindset when you're adding new pages. You can be thinking about keywords, making sure your title tag is good because you've been through the process and you've learned a bit from doing it.
So to be clear, you're not a website creator.
I'm not a developer. I set up my own site and
Mhm.
I did a course in the basics like HTML and
Mhm.
CSS, which is the building blocks. And I have set up my own WordPress site, but I don't edit other people's sites for them. Yeah.
So the difference between setting up and building a website and optimizing a website are they're two very different things.
They're different things, but when you first, like if you're setting up a brand new business and you're setting up a new website, you can set up the site so that it is SEO optimized right from the get-go.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, a lot of websites are not set up like that. And
Mhm.
I think what's happening now is it's actually becoming easier and easier to just sort of slap together a website using a lot of very automated tools. And
Mhm.
you might get a site that looks really lovely, beautiful colors, nice
Mhm.
animations, but it hasn't had the SEO framework built into it. So then it means that later someone's going to have to come and review it and set that all up. But certainly I do work with website designers to collaborate with them right from the beginning so that when a website is first set up, it's going to have the title tag set up, it's going to have the images optimized, it's all going to be set up for search success, as I call it, from right from the get-go.
Well, I'm all into search success. I think search
Yeah.
success is a wonderful thing. And it's interesting. I mean, for me, because I really don't understand the language at all, even asking questions, right? I'm asking questions from that person who doesn't know how to do any of this. And so
Mhm.
I really appreciate your ability to be able to simplify this by explaining the difference between X, Y, and Z for
Yeah.
our listeners to know. Because I think a lot of people want to have really prominent websites. They
Mm.
want to be, number one and number two on a Google
Yeah.
search. But, as you said, that may not be something that happens quite, right away. It may
Yeah.
take some time to do that.
Can
Uh,
I say one more thing about that,
of
if
course,
you
yeah.
don't mind? Um, the SEO field, there's a lot of rather dodgy operators. And if you're a business owner, you've probably received a lot of emails from random people and businesses saying, hey, your website really needs work. It's in very bad shape. What you need is you need SEO. And I can sell you this service. Now, unfortunately, the industry has so much of this. So I like to call myself as like an ethical SEO, and I like to educate people because I think even if people have just a some basic understanding of SEO, they're going to be able to figure out, okay, this person sounds like they're just trying to take my money and do things that are not even really ethical on my website. So one of the things I offer, I have a free checklist that people can download and just on their own and using Google and figuring things out, they can get a good sense themselves of whether their website needs work or not. And I think that's a great place to start because, as I said, there's just a lot of horrible misinformation out
Well,
there.
and you're reading my mind because I was going to talk to you about
Okay.
that next. So I'm so glad that
Okay.
you brought it up because it's true. I get them
Yeah.
every single day, and not
Yeah.
one or two, but loads of them every day.
Right.
And
Right.
so, yeah, it's very true. I was going to ask you about that, and I'm not finished with asking you about that because, but you did have a great segue. You did say that people could go to your website and download a free checklist. So how do
Yeah.
people, now that they've got their paper and pen handy, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, how do
Mhm.
we get them to go to Happy Pedals to find that checklist and find out more about your organization?
Okay, so the website is Happy Pedals, like happypedals. It's nothing to do with the flower petals. .ca. And then if you do a forward slash start dash here.
Start dash here.
And there's a link there to download the what I call the essential visibility checklist.
Now, just for the sake of conversation, what are some of the things that are on that checklist?
I tell you how to find out if Google has indexed your pages. So that's not really a topic we've covered.
Let's talk
Um,
about it.
okay. Uh, so when you do a Google search and you see the Google results, like where do they come from? Well,
Mhm,
Google has this giant index where it has a list of web pages that it thinks are related to certain topics.
mhm,
And how does it get those web pages? It crawls around on the internet and it looks at websites. You can also request Google, you can say, Google, I've made this new web page. I would like you please to index this page. But it is going to make a decision. Is this page worth indexing or not? And how
mhm,
does it make that decision? So there's a long list of factors that go into that. If your web page only has like 100 words of content about a topic that everybody actually knows about already, it's probably going to think this page is not worth indexing. But if it has useful content, like original content, not AI generated rubbish, if you have some personal stories, or if you're explaining something that someone else hasn't explained, or if it's a product or service that you sell that is probably going to be useful to customers, then Google might index that page. And you can find out by running a very simple format of search query in Google. You can find out which of your web pages have been indexed. You can also see when you do that search what the title tags look like for all of those pages. So you can quickly at a glance see, is my title tag a good one? Is it going to explain what my business is? Is it going to make people think, oh, I think I'm going to click on this link. It looks like it might be interesting. Or
mhm.
is it something like I said earlier, home brands and enterprises? Like what on earth does that mean? So that's one of the things. I'm going to draw a blank on all the other stuff.
Well, that's okay. I'm sure that there's many, many things to do, but just thinking about the indexing component of it, and I think about, our great big beautiful world that we're in, and how many hundreds of thousands and thousands and thousands of web pages are on the
Yes,
net. It's overwhelming to think
it is.
about
Yeah,
that. So how does Google know to hone in to
yeah,
mine?
yeah. There's also a concept, domain authority. So
Hmm.
if you launch a brand new website,
Hmm.
why should Google trust it
Hmm.
if no one else trusts it? And how does it know if anyone else trusts it? Well, if other websites are pointing to your website, that's an indicator that those other websites think that your website has something useful on it.
Mhm.
Those are called backlinks. So if you have a website and you can work on getting other websites to point to yours, like maybe you have a great blog post about Nanaimo hiking that you've done.
Mhm.
And the Nanaimo tourism website says, "Oh, that's interesting," and they put a little link to your website. That's going to make your website seem more trustworthy.
Mhm.
Okay, there's also things like if you are a physiotherapist and you have a website, do you list your credentials? Like I studied at this college and I got this certificate.
Mhm.
Do
Mhm.
you list your business's address? This all just makes you seem more legitimate. So there's all kinds of ways you can make your website seem more trustworthy.
But now
I,
with
I
so
started,
many people relying on AI,
yes,
and we also know that AI isn't always trustworthy.
right.
How do we critically analyze what we are putting out there, what it is we're seeing, and the accuracy of those pieces? I mean, I know what's right in my website. For example,
Mhm.
I know what my professionalism is, but I don't know what some other person's is in there. So how does Google show its credibility for it to be picked up so quickly from chat? As you said, it goes, chat will pull something in like literally seconds. How is it doing it?
Okay, so the question you're asking is how does ChatGPT do very quick searches?
No, I think how is ChatGPT discerning whether or not it's a legitimate source?
Okay, so it does rely on all of the basic fundamentals of SEO,
Hmm.
and domain authority and that kind of thing is one of them, and ex showing that you are trustworthy is one aspect of basic SEO. Also, ChatGPT is looking at these multiple sources. So it's not just saying, I say I'm an amazing person on my website. It's also saying, oh, do the people who review you in Google say the same thing?
Exactly.
And what about the people in Yelp? So it's getting information from multiple sources, and the more the better, as long as the sources are legitimate. You don't want to have your business recommended on a like a gambling website or something. Like
Yeah,
there
for
are
sure.
websites that are more legitimate. And if you get citations, as they're called, where you're just discussed on those websites, or if you get actual links, that's all good for your credibility and what's called your domain authority.
There's so much you need to know. So it's
There is, yeah.
why don't we give people again the website? How do people get in touch with you to ask these questions and hopefully get your service?
So my website name is Happy Pedals. So it's happypedals.ca. And if you go /start-here, you can book a free 15-minute consultation with me where I'm happy to have a quick look at your website and give you a sense of what might help for your specific business. And you can also download that free essential visibility checklist to get started.
I'm so excited that I think I'm going to get off of this conversation in just a few minutes and go and check it out because I'm
Fantastic.
now curious about all of it. I really appreciate you being a guest on Act Three today. Thank you so very much for your time. We're at the end of the program, but I always love to ask my favorite question at the end of every program, and that is if you were to imbibe a piece of wisdom for your experiences and all of this work that you've done and all the stuff that you've shared and Happy Petals and the work that you do, what would you want people to really know about you and the work that you've done?
Um, I would want them to know that I want to help people just get found, and I want to help people find out what's special about them. Like often you need an outsider to come in and ask you about the type of business you do and the type of service you provide. And those questions can uncover that, there's things about your products or services you didn't really realize or
Mhm.
you assumed were obvious, but they're just not being explained on your website. And you're sort of losing out because it's not being, the world doesn't know about it because it hasn't been well explained on your website. And I love finding that kind of thing and making it clear for people to put on their site.
Well, I have to say, this has been a fascinating conversation. I really, really appreciate your time, Geraldine. It's just been so lovely to notice how much I don't understand about this topic and how much clearer that you made so much of it in this hour that we shared together. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure.
It
Thank you,
certainly was
Karen.
ours. Absolutely. Well, that does it for this episode of Act 3 on CHOY 101.7 FM. I hope you have an absolutely delicious day. Take good care of yourself and the people that are around you. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again.